personal information, but honestly I feel like we erred on the conservative side. Yet we found out that Snoop Dogg was in fact this tester's best friend.
Okay.
But for the most part, I mean, if you actually watch the story, we use live shots. We don't really hone in on people's personal data. We blurred, contacts, phone numbers, text messages. It was really the exchange between the host and the tester to say, hey, we know, but the viewers at home won't get that personal information.
Okay, and we know that not everybody loved this experiment.
No, not everybody did. But, at the end of the day, big picture, what we were trying to prove was, I do it, you might do it, a lot of people do it. We click install, we download these apps, we don't really know what permissions we're giving up. And once we explained to these testers what the bigger objective was, it was really an educational, eye-opening experience for them.
Not just say it, but show them, right?
We show them. And I think that's the thing. You have to sometimes show someone. Because if you tell them, it's, yeah, I get it. But when you show them, they really start to understand. So it was a really eye-opening experience for them.
Very quick, what if you had found something? What if you'd gone into their phone and in that moment you actually see them in the commission of a crime?
I'm sure if we would have found anything like that, just for different conversations would have been had, different considerations would have been made.
Really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
If the prospect is someone secretly accessing your phone's camera or microphone, as you wanted to throw your phone out right now, hang on a second. This is the Consumer Electronics Show that's been on this week in Las Vegas. Along with the latest in robots and entertainment systems, an entire industry is springing up now that's aimed at giving you back some personal power. That's something CBC's senior technology writer Matthew Braga has been looking into. How is the industry showing that it's taking seriously the privacy rights of consumers?
Well, so naturally, you talk to a lot of these companies, especially companies that are creating sort of smart connected home devices. So, internet connected cameras, dishwashers, even shower heads, right? And, everyone, of course, is going to talk about how their devices are secure, they respect privacy and that sort of stuff. And, it was kind of interesting to kind of hear sort of what everyone was kind of, thinking in terms of sort of their protections, right? I mean, I had some camera companies that said that their approach to privacy is, literally building mechanical shutters right on their cameras so that, someone can't, remotely turn a camera on in software. Or, I had other companies saying, okay, we collect all this data from your home, but we actually store it locally. We don't put it up into the cloud. And so, it's kind of hard to sort of, test all these claims out just, talking to people at the show. But the fact that people are kind of talking about this and being really open about sort of, code reviews of their software and security audits and things like, penetration testing to see, can attackers get into, the devices and get people's data out and take control and all that sort of stuff. People are definitely willing to talk about it. And so I hope that kind of shows that the industry is maybe moving into a direction that is taking these sorts of issues a little bit more proactively, perhaps, than they were in the past.
And do you think that they recognize that consumers, like me, are getting a little antsy about just the level of encroachment now?
I hope so. I mean, an example that I was, using yesterday when I was talking with someone is, you have your phone now and you can, look at a privacy settings page, right? That shows every app that's using your location, access to your photos, et cetera, et cetera. But, as the number of devices, I think, that have access to our information, as the number of devices that are connected to the internet and gathering data and sort of just collecting information about ourselves increases, I almost wonder whether there's going to have to be at some point, like, a dashboard for the home, right, that shows, oh, my thermostat is using my location on this day, or, my dishwasher is connecting to the internet here, or, something that kind of gives consumers a little bit more of a sense of how are all of these new technologies, basically using our data and sharing our data and storing it in ways that I don't think people fully grasp yet.
That's going to be interesting to watch for. Thanks, Matthew.
Thanks, Diana.
How do journalists weigh the right to privacy with the need to show a public health disaster? We'll take you to the front lines of Canada's opioid crisis. Plus, hackers are targeting victims through fake news stories. Just one of the 5 things we learned from investigative journalism this week. Our roundup is next. But first,
on time and on budget.
Washington is getting ready for Donald Trump's inauguration, and journalists are scrambling to figure out who will be headlining the presidential party.
It remains doubtful that we're going to see musical performances of the, shall we say, caliber that the self-described billionaire would consider bigly.
Singers Andrea Bocelli, Gene Simmons, Celine Dion, and Elton John have also resigned.
So why is this news? Beyonce, James Taylor, Brad Paisley,
Those are just a few of the A-list entertainers who sang at President Obama's last inauguration.
Right. So, how does Donald Trump feel about getting the cold shoulder from the hot list?
The president-elect displaying his disdain on Twitter, saying the so-called A-list celebrities are all wanting tickets to the inauguration, but look what they did for Hillary. Nothing. I want the people.
Fair enough. No celebrities at this inauguration then, just regular people. Unless, of course, what you actually mean is that your team is still trying to get a headliner.
So I understand you're trying to get either Justin Timberlake or Bruno Mars to perform at the inauguration, right?
Yes. They can call me, by the way.
What's that?
Call me.
What is she doing here?
She's going to help with the business.
It's no different than selling milk and potatoes.
I didn't really know anything about my family history. Went to Ancestry. I put in the names of my grandparents first. I got a leaf right away. A leaf is a hint that is connected to each person in your family tree. I learned that my 10 times great grandmother is George Washington's aunt. Within a few days, I went from knowing almost nothing to, holy crow, I'm related to George Washington. This is my cousin George.
Discover your story. Start searching for free now at ancestry.ca.
And first place for best pasta sauce goes to...
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, everybody hands go up. And they stay there, and they say yeah, and they say that.
Homemade pasta sauce will always win, but with inspiration from the regions of Italy, we're a pretty close second.
Since I started Weight Watchers, I've lost over 40 pounds. I can honestly tell you, I struggle no more. I've eaten everything I love. Tacos, pasta. I've never felt deprived. I would say to anybody who's thinking about joining Weight Watchers, take the leap and get about the business of enjoying a fantastic and full life.
In the first 2 months, members have lost 15% more weight than on our prior program. Join for free now and lose 10 pounds on us.
It's being described as a public health crisis, the rise of fentanyl use in Canada. We'll talk to the CDC's Natalie Clancy about the challenges of covering that story in 2 minutes on The Investigators.
You know, I tried to give up smoking before, and I tried everything. It has to work this time. I want to go hiking with Michelle for our anniversary. I can't climb a flight of stairs without getting winded. Ugh. Yeah, I gotta shape up. I'm so ready to give up smoking, but I don't know if I can do it. And do you have any advice or anything?
Ask your doctor or pharmacist for your prescription to quit.
What was it like out on the ice today?
It's so awesome. Very cool. It was fun. I have a friend and he's usually always on defense with me and we always work together. It's just really fun to play with your friends on the ice. I just fell in love with hockey.
Winter. It's inevitable. But colds and flus don't have to be. Defy nature with Echinaforce. A fresh, organic echinacea from A. Vogel that's clinically proven for both prevention and treatment. Whether you use it to strengthen your immune system or knock out symptoms and shorten your sick time. This winter, make Echinaforce your family's defense.
We're getting a very rare glimpse into Aleppo's old city. You understand the sense of loss and devastation to the city of Aleppo. The Syrian government insists that it's going to be taking the city from the rebels in the coming days, that the battle of Aleppo is nearly over. Of course, the rebel and opposition groups say that's not the case. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Aleppo.
Here are 5 things we learned this week from investigative journalists. CBC News learns that military police are investigating after a smartphone was found hidden inside a women's change room at a DND facility in Toronto. One of France's most popular newspaper chains says it won't commission opinion polls as part of its coverage of this year's presidential election. The Parisien will instead focus on investigative journalism. The Panama Papers, which revealed how many rich and powerful people hide their money, have led to criminal investigations now against more than 6,000 people and companies. That's according to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. The U.S. government believes Russian hackers are using fake news articles as clickbait to hack into servers. That's according to documents reviewed by the Daily Beast. And CBC News learns that many pharmacies in the city of Ottawa aren't carrying the Naloxone kits used to counter the effects of fentanyl overdoses. That's in spite of recommendations from health officials. And that fentanyl crisis is where we're headed next. Investigative journalists often come up against issues of consent and privacy in their work, balancing the public's need to know with anyone's right to privacy, and finding that line can be tricky.
First responders can barely keep up with the overdoses. Our cameras tagged along with them for a day.
CBC's Natalie Clancy has been reporting on the devastating effects of fentanyl on people on Vancouver's downtown east side for months. She's shown the toll the drug takes on its users and the city's first responders as they try to deal with multiplying overdoses.
So yesterday we had someone come back 7 times in one day. It can get overwhelming. It can get to the point where you're just like, why are we doing this? This is getting too much.
Opioids like fentanyl can essentially turn users into zombies, making them totally unresponsive and unaware of their surroundings. Like this woman.
She's oblivious to her soiled shorts, blood dripping down her leg.
She's also oblivious to the news camera, which raises a key question. She is in no shape to give consent, so does showing the footage exploit her?
What the hell is the news crew doing here?
Or does it get people's attention by showing the audience what a spiraling drug crisis in their own city really looks like?
So Natalie, in some of your footage, we've seen a man who's unconscious. He's face down on a sidewalk. He can't give consent. The woman we just talked about, obviously no condition to give her consent. So tell me about the decision to go ahead and use their images.
Well, I would argue these people are in a public place in the middle of a public health crisis, and if you look closely, you can't search them on the internet. You can't say, oh, that was so-and-so, because their faces are blurred. And to me, that is the line of protecting patient confidentiality in the context of a public health crisis, where when we began reporting on this in January, experts were telling us earlier in the year that it's going to be like 3 jumbo jets crashing, 800 people are going to die if the government doesn't do more, if people don't do more. And in fact, sadly, that's right where we are by the end of the year. So we continue, as based on that story, we were able to still get access to the emergency room, and even later, after 4 times saying no, we see ambulance paramedics finally let us go on a ride-along with them, and that story's coming up. And we continue to strike this balance of reporting on a public health crisis by showing what happens. And I can tell you, some of our stories have been shown in high schools, and it's not pretty. When you overdose, your heart stops, and sometimes we've seen patients soil themselves. It's not my job to sanitize that when there's 755 people dead so far, just as of the end of November, Diana.
And it's often a tough call that we see things, we get footage, and we have to decide whether it's fair and reasonable to show this. You know, whether that's a bombing in a marketplace, something in a war zone, or something like this. I mean, have you made decisions to not show something, even though it would have been very compelling?
Well, what we've had to do is make decisions to stop filming, because when you're out in the street, in this community, people have yelled at us, and screamed at us, and threatened us, even when we've been with first responders, because imagine what we look like. I'm carrying a big still camera, I'm with a videographer, and it appears as though we're filming people dying. It looks very voyeuristic, and when people don't understand, at one point we were outside a clinic, when a man who looked like an investment banker to me had come from the gym and overdosed. They were screaming at us, this clinic, this community center. Well, later, once I explained that we were building a database and doing a series and holding the government accountable for a failed promise to build addiction beds in the province, they ended